Madam President, pursuant to a previous unanimous consent request, I ask that the pending amendment be set aside and that Amendment 4259, which is at the desk, be offered.
Clerk will report.
The Senator from New Jersey, Mr. Menendez, proposes amendment number 4259.
And I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment be
Without
waived.
objection.
Madam President, I rise today to offer an amendment, an alternative to the amendment offered by Senator Sessions, an alternative that I think actually has a chance to help fix our broken immigration system. My amendment would increase border security and enforce immigration laws without wasting our resources in unnecessary and potentially even dangerous ways. We have to be smart when we think about solutions to the immigration problem. We have to enact measures that do more than just sound tough. They have to be tough. We have to consider what the impact our legislation will have on other programs and other priorities. And we cannot just throw money and personnel at the border without thinking carefully about the consequences. My amendment gets to the real heart of the problem. It provides for increased border security and increased enforcement of immigration laws. It gives us the manpower we need to address our immigration problems by providing for greater staffing for the Department of Homeland Security, because the department can't do its job if it just simply doesn't have sufficient staff. My amendment addresses the real root of the immigration problem, the incentive for crossing the border without a visa. It helps eliminate this incentive by getting tough on employers who hire undocumented immigrants. Now, we know that undocumented immigrants come to the United States for what? They come looking for a job. They want a better life. And they see an American paycheck as the means to get it. Well, without the draw of the job, without the draw of income, the motivation to risk it all to cross the border illegally dries up. Building a bigger, stronger, taller fence simply doesn't cut it, because we all know if there's a will, there's generally a way. And rather than create new obstacles that simply undocumented immigrants are going to try to figure out how to get around, we need to address the underlying motivation that is the magnet that drives them to migrate in the first place. And the way to do this is to come down harder on the employers who provide them the incentive. My amendment would do this by increasing criminal and civil penalties against employers who hire undocumented immigrants. It seems clear that today's penalties are not a sufficient deterrent for these companies, so my amendment sends them a clear message. We are going to hold you accountable for your actions. There are going to be real consequences for breaking the law. My amendment would also prohibit employers that hire undocumented immigrants from receiving federal contracts. There is simply no reason why any company that receives a federal contract should be breaking the law by hiring undocumented immigrants. It's interesting that there are some news stories about those who are actually building the wall doing exactly that. Isn't that ironic? The amendment I'm offering isn't just about getting tough, it's about getting smart. Now, Senator Sessions and others on the other side of the aisle would not only build a bigger, longer, taller fence along the border, something we have seen just simply won't work on its own. They also want to deploy a significant number of our National Guard to help support the Border Patrol. Now, let me say from the outset, I'm not at all opposed to sending reinforcements for the Border Patrol. I've voted for those increases in the Border Patrol agents. They're understaffed and underfunded, and they need all the help they can get. What I am opposed to is taking one resource away from a desperate situation in order to give that resource to another allegedly desperate situation. Just like our Border Patrol, our National Guard is stretched thin. Right now, there are over 15,500 members of the National Guard deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan. In the time between September of 2001 and November 30th of 2007, close to 255,000 National Guard troops have been deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. And this year, my home state of New Jersey, by way of example, will witness the largest deployment of National Guard personnel since World War II. So before we rush to act, we should know what the impact of moving the National Guard would have on the safety of our troops in Iraq and Afghanistan in terms of those needs. That's why my amendment would prohibit deployment of the National Guard, would ensure that deployment of the National Guard to the borders could take place, but two important things would have to happen first. First, the Secretary of Defense would have to certify that the deployment would not negatively impact the safety of our troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. And second, the governor of the National Guard's home state must certify that the deployment would not have a negative impact on the safety and security of that home state. After all, protecting the people of the home state is the whole reason why states have National Guard units in the first place. We cannot endorse a policy that robs Peter to pay Paul. We have to think long and hard about the impact of taking resources away from Iraq or Afghanistan, taking resources away from the states that face the risk of natural disasters as big and as devastating as Hurricane Katrina. We have to know that taking these resources away will not hurt more than it helps us. My amendment makes sure that before we act, we know what we're getting into. Now, I do not disagree with every aspect of my colleagues' amendments. In fact, there are two provisions in the Sessions Amendment that I wholeheartedly support, and they are in my amendment as well. I, like Senator Sessions, believe that we can do more to remove those undocumented immigrants in our prison system that should be removed. That's why in my amendment we would evaluate the federal, state, and local prison populations that are non-citizens in order to identify removable undocumented immigrants. I also believe, like Senator Sessions, that we need to do more to implement the U.S. visit, entry, and exit data system to make sure that we are keeping track of those who actually exit our country once their visas expire. That's what my amendment would help to implement, the exit data portion of that program. So, Madam President, I'll close on this note, on this issue, by simply saying it's interesting to see some of those who have some of the harshest rhetoric, as well as some of the harshest legislative initiatives, then come and say, but you know, while I'm doing this, we need ag workers. We need H-1B, high-tech workers. Or we need H-2B, lower-skilled workers. So they want their piece of the immigration pie, but they also want to portray themselves as centurions at the border. It just doesn't quite work that way. It just doesn't quite work that way. Immigration is a difficult problem to tackle. That is something I think we can all agree on. Any solution needs to be smart, it needs to be tough, it needs to be effective. That's what my amendment is.